Hey folks, thanks for keeping it right here on Politics, Prophecy, and a Supernatural Report with your intrepid host, L.A. Marzulli. But our special guest for part two is my good friend, Bill Salus. We've been at numerous conferences together. And Bill, it's always great to see you, and hope to see you face-to-face at some point here in the not-too-distant future. But you've written 4 books in this series, the Now Prophecies, which was the first one. And the latest book, number 4 in that, is the Final Prophecies. So sort of give us a rundown, but I want to ask you first of all, there's no other book like this that really focuses not only in the book of Revelation, but the Bible as a whole and how all these prophecies dovetail together. What's the nexus of this? What motivated you, because this is quite an undertaking, what motivated you to do this?
Well, L.A., I do sincerely feel I was called by God to do this, to chronologically order the prophecies between now, the unfulfilled prophecies, and the second coming of Jesus Christ. And it's laid itself out into 4 books. The Now Prophecies, basically, in a nutshell, talk about the prophecies that lack any preconditions. They could happen at the present time. And there's a list of 8 or 9 of those, mainly Middle East centered. And also the rapture of the church is a big one within that could happen at the present time. But then after the rapture of the church, I get into the next prophecies that I think happen. They have some preconditions. They're nominal, and they're coming at us. We can see the stage of setting for these, like Ezekiel 38 or something like that. But they have some preconditions that'll pretty much be taken out of the way when some of the Now prophecies find fulfillment. And in that book, I introduced a gap that happens after the rapture before the tribulation starts in an unspecified period of time. But it's not the rapture that starts the tribulation, it's the confirmation of a false covenant in Daniel 9:27 and Isaiah 28 verses 15 through 18. So I get into that, what could happen in that gap? Because if that could be a couple of years, like Gary Stearman, myself, Dr. Reagan, a few others, believe that gap could actually be for a semi-prolonged period of at least a couple of years. It may not be, we don't know. But you'd figure it's not just going to be laissez-faire on the earth, it's going to be supernatural things going on, because immediately after the rapture, Satan is going to be employing supernatural signs and lying wonders to deceive people, and the supernatural will be the natural, and the paranormal will be the new normal at that point in time. Of course, that's your whole bailiwick there. Now, the last prophecies, we get into the tribulation, what happens in the first 3.5 years of the tribulation period. You got the harlot world religion, Mystery Babylon going on. You've got the seal and trumpet judgments going on, powerful things going on in the world at that time. People are dying left, right, famines and plagues are going on as the Antichrist is kind of trying to emerge as a political leader and a military leader, etc. And then this book, which is really intense, is the Final Prophecies, the prophecies in the last 3.5 years of the tribulation. And it gets into what happens in the midpoint, and there's about 8 or 9 things there. So there's a war in heaven, Satan gets cast down to earth. He's got to resurrect the Antichrist, who got a mortal head wound. The Antichrist resurrects, the world marvels, they start to follow him. He goes to Jerusalem, he kills the 2. This is a ton of things going on in the middle of the tribulation, happening in a rapid little window period of maybe a few days to a month, etc. Then the second half of the tribulation is incredible, because then you got the bowl judgments. This is called the Great Tribulation because it's more intense than any other time in the Earth's history. You got the 7 bowl judgments. You got the Mark of the Beast is coming out at that point, the cashless economy, cryptocurrencies will be abounding, digital dollars, technologies we're seeing rapidly coming to the fore right now.
Absolutely.
As I see what's going on with COVID-19 and the things going on, I actually see some of the final things that take us into the tribulation period are developing right now. That tells me we are so close to the return of Christ and the rapture and the beginning of these other prophecies going into the tribulation. It's somewhat scary, because you and I both have people we know and love who are going to get left behind. They have not accepted the Lord yet. And that's why we're urgently trying to say this is an urgent message for people right now.
You know, I want to get into this. You just kind of piqued my interest with one of the last things that you said. It's amazing how, as a student of biblical prophecy, and I've been saved 40 years, and I know you're saved about the same amount of time. Before this, I knew something was up, but I didn't know what. I mean, I was sort of a new age guy and believed in the space brothers were going to come back and usher mankind into a golden age. But as I began to study prophecy like you, I realized that, oh my gosh, there's this whole thread from Genesis to Revelation. And this is supernatural. I mean, you know, we take all this for granted because it's in this book. But what is often overlooked, and there actually are people or pastors that tell us today that anyone who reads prophecy really shouldn't be concerned with that. Yet we know almost a third of the Bible is prophetic literature. So this points to a God outside the space-time continuum as we know it. And that God of the Bible is calling out these events with great specificity. This is supernatural. We have a supernatural God. We're living in a supernatural world. And we are seeing what I would call, and I know you believe this too, the birth pangs. So, we're in the now prophecies. We're about to move into the next prophecies. The last prophecies, of course, that deals with the tribulation. But the final prophecies, and of course, there's a message of hope there at the very end. So tell us, sort of give us a rough outline of where the book is going to go, and then give us that hope message at the end.
Well, I do have a chapter in there dealing with the messages actually for us to be spurred to evangelize with right now, but also for the people going through the tribulation. This book is written for double audiences, people who do get left behind as well. We suspect we'll be reading this thing for encouragement. And throughout the book of Revelation, in this chapter I put out, there are several benedictions and instructions given to people going through these believers going through these times. And so I try to close it with that good, powerful message. But, LA, again, this is your bailiwick. The supernatural thing, I have 3 chapters on the mark of the beast. And I even quote you in the 3rd chapter, which gets into what is the religious aspect, the supernatural component of the mark of the beast. Because all we're told in Revelation 13, when it comes to the mark of the beast, is no one's going to buy or sell. Let's say take this mark, which would probably be a technology upon the right end of the forehead. But as we read deeper into it, and you've done great studies on this, we find out, listen, you're going to be experiencing the wrath of God if you take the mark of the beast. You're going to be losing your salvation. There's no grace, mercy, or forgiveness for them, etc., that sort of thing. So it has a religious connotation. Is it they've changed their human genome? Is it DNA alteration? What is the UFO phenomena got to do with all that sort of thing? What is Satan going to do when he gets cast down to the earth around that period? So, LA, kind of that section, I really, as a conservative Bible prophecy teacher, I took some liberties, quoted you quite a bit, and I'm hoping that my readers will get interested in that, because we can't, this is a message that has to be talked about right now. And we're not, when we talk about UFO and ETs, and I know you qualified this too, we're not talking about other intelligent beings living out on planet Thorax, way out, we're talking about fallen angels, right, masquerading as intelligent, ETs from other parts of the universe. There's a big distinction to be made there.
And that's really well said. And of course, we are ramping up to this incredible event called the tribulation, which the Bible speaks of, the time of Jacob's trouble. It's not the time of the church's trouble. It focuses on that 7-year period of Israel. And for the life of me, I don't understand why people hold to this, and people can believe what they want to believe. And please don't email us banging us over the head, telling us that there's no such thing as a pre-tribulation rapture, because we know that there is. It's the time of Jacob's trouble. And what we see, in my opinion, is the groundwork being laid for this. And it all hinges around Israel. It has nothing to do with the church. But the church is part of it up to a point, then we're taken out and all hell breaks loose. What is the message of hope with the final prophecies?
Well, it ends well because it ends with the second coming of Jesus Christ. And
there you go.
I'm talking about that. And at the end of the book, it talks about he's going to return. The Jewish remnant is going to say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord in their affliction. He's going to come for them. He's going to take out the Antichrist and the armies of Armageddon. And he's going to do a victory ascent to Mount of Olives. It's going to be exciting. And then there's a 75-day interval period where he kind of reconstructs the world. He sends the believing Gentiles into the Messianic kingdom. And then you got a millennial period. A lot of people don't even know about the 75-day interval period or what goes on in the millennium. Matter of fact, I'm probably going to write a book on the Millennium Prophecies. I thought I was going to end it here, but it looks like I'm going to go into the Millennium Prophecies. Our friend Bob Ulrich at Prophecy Watcher says, you got to do that.
And Bob would know. Definitely Bob would know. Folks, we're going to be carrying Bill's book here in our store, lamarzulli.net, lamarzulli.net. You'll be able to procure that book. I think it's vital reading, especially just in view of the times that we find ourselves living with, unprecedented, tumultuous times. And Bill's book will give us hope, but it's also the kind of book where you can give to, let's say, someone who isn't saved, and point that these prophecies in the Bible, written thousands of years ago, are now coming to pass in these last days. Bill, give us your final thoughts, please.
Well, again, like you and I know we're living deep into the end times. The message couldn't be more urgent. This whole thing with going on with COVID-19, the most important elections of our time with the American presidential thing, they still got issues in building a coalition in Israel. The whole world is running amok right now. All it is doing is telling us right now that we're about to be cast in unsuspectingly, without warning. Unsaved humanity is going to be cast into the worst 7 years period on this Earth's timeline.
That's right.
And we're trying to tell people, don't run that risk, because you can believe in Jesus Christ right now. You confess with your lips He's the Lord. You believe in your heart He was resurrected from the dead, and you shall not be put to shame. You shall be saved. It's a prayer from the heart, and you can then become a believer and part of the household of God, like Ellie Marzulli and myself. And we would love to have you, welcome you. Come to our websites. Email us. We'll tell you what it's all about. We look forward to that.
Bill, thanks so much for coming on the record. Really appreciate it. And folks, you can get Bill's book by going to lamarzulli.net, lamarzulli.net, and order it. And I think it's a must read. Bill, thanks so much for coming on the record. Really appreciate it.